This episode of the Stickers and Scuffs podcast has been brought to you by RE/MAX Jack. Jack provides a friendly, customer-driven service in search for homes and provides excellent details on the market, values, and trends in buying and selling. Jack has been able to work with Cam on his search and always makes himself available when he has a question. RE/MAX Jack will help you if you're looking to buy or sell a home within the GTA. He's who Cam K trusts to find his next home, and he should be yours too. Remember, call RE/MAX Jack and start to pack. For more information, go to remaxjack.ca.
Hello, everybody. It is Cam K and Graydon Bunn for the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. We're getting to the end of 2022, but we've got a couple more episodes for you with some amazing guests. And we're going to go back to the Ontario Sportsman Series. He's not Kevin Trevelyan. He's not Michael Herniak Jr. He's Brad Robinson, who drives the number 44. And Brad's joining us for this episode. I think we're on episode maybe 94, maybe 94. 95. Brad, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on, man. It's you were on the call list in case anybody canceled. Nobody canceled, but we got you in before the new year. So we got to go back, man. We'll talk about the 2022 season for you because Ontario Sportsman Series first year. Myself actually being able to get out to the racetrack and Graydon, we both got out there for S&S and really great little series you guys have. Where did the idea come from to come race in the OSS?
So long story short, I raced go-karts for years and then moved up to super stocks. I ran super stocks kind of on a part-time basis at Peterborough Speedway. And we were there one night when OSS was there and just immediately fell in love with the cars. And my dad raced back in the day, which was a cast car sportsman. So we kind of had a lot of the parts to go to the series if we wanted to. So we ended up talking to some of the officials and they're like, yeah, because we were running, actually, there was a lady in the series years ago, Amanda Connolly. We were running her Grand Prix body, so it was a ultimate fiberglass body. So it kind of fit within their rules. So I ended up running one race with them that season in the series and just and fell in love with it. Just being able to travel from track to track, it's a different experience. You got to reset every week. And the kind of like, I always like the Pinty series, but of course, it's racing's expensive, right? So this is kind of like an entry level way, kind of into that, the longer races, the traveling series. So
I'm going to be very upset with you considering you've taken a Grand Prix and you didn't use it last year. We were talking about this, Graydon and I said of all I might be crazy, man, but there's a reason why I don't have many cars displayed yet. I've got the Pontiac Grand Prix out here for that specific reason because absolutely love that. And the fact that you got Amanda Connolly's well, now Amanda Balson's old body. I love that. I love the history because that's one thing that we talked about, right? Great. Like with Trevelyan, we talked with Trevelyan, and Trevelyan's cars have been through like countless owners. Herniak's cars have been through countless owners. So where you talked about was it the body that you got just from Amanda, or was the chassis actually from Amanda as well?
So it ended up being just the body. So we actually have some really good family friends when we went super stock racing, and essentially drug an old super stock up to the shop and sandblasted it, cleaned it all up, and just kind of bought little pieces here and there that we needed and went super stock racing.
Oh, love it.
That's a good story. And as you said, like, your father is involved in racing, so you kind of had a bit of an inventory, if you will, laying around with some parts that you could maybe pinch a few pennies and kind of make it more affordable to get into where you were going racing. So you did the karts and the super stocks. When did you get into the Sportsman Series?
My first season would have been last year, 2021, about halfway through the year, because the car wasn't fully built. Our first race was actually at Peterborough, and that was a lot of fun. Really, really learned a lot. Actually, kind of, if I had to take anything away from the pandemic, the less cars on the track, kind of just running laps at the back, kind of learning my way. Definitely a lot. And then this year, in 2022, we kind of decided to step up our game a little bit, and it was pretty good.
Yeah, the OSS, it's to Cam's point, it has a really great family atmosphere, nice intimate setting, if you will. But it's a touring series. So, I mean, at the same time, as you alluded to, that you do have to change setups and reset week to week. What's that like in terms of the grind of the season?
It's hard because it's sometimes
you have a notebook. Like, is that where you have to go and talk to people?
Yeah, so I get a lot of help, especially from Herniak's. Mike Senior is he's the man when it comes to figuring out these tracks, right?
For sure.
So it's odd with these cars because they seem to be hit and miss. At least for me that way. Depending on the track that I go to, like one of my favorite tracks is Varney, by far Varney. And you're either doing really well, or like for me, Flamborough, like I really struggle at Flamborough. That's one of the tracks that we're going to work at this year.
It's an animal.
Yeah. So just kind of leaning on other drivers taking bits and pieces, right? Because, what works for somebody else might not work for you, right? So just leaning on people like Kevin Trevelyan, Michael Herniak Jr., Senior, just trying to learn the tracks is the biggest thing. And what works for them might not work for me, but I can at least kind of pick away at little things. Okay, this worked this time. The other thing didn't work, essentially, right? So,
you had I would say it was a tough season for a lot of people in the series. Really, it was, for us, it was, the OSS is still in a rebuilding phase. Like we know that it's got great potential to be an amazing stepping stone for those that want to be in stock cars, and it has so much potential there. But one thing that was awesome to see is that you got an opportunity a couple of times. You sat on the front row at, I believe it was at Peterborough, perhaps, or right up close, and then you also led your very first laps in the series at Sunset Speedway. I believe it was 15 in total. So you got out there and got an experience to be up front. Didn't end the way that you were hoping, but one thing I was really impressed with, Brad, and I'm curious if it took the whole race for you to feel this way, but you were very calm when I asked you what had happened after the wreck at Sunset from the lead, and you were just kind of matter of fact, and you were just so excited to be up front. And for yourself, like that's the thing, is we see some of these drivers that go out there and get paid millions of dollars. That go out there and they wreck, and then they just crap all over the entire interview. You were like, oh my God, I was up front. I was leading laps. I was going to do this, and I did this. Where's the attitude coming from, man? Is that from you getting encouragement? Like what happened?
It's racing's hard. Like any chance that I can get out front and lead races, qualify up front, win poles, at the end of the day, it builds momentum, right?
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the day, it sucks the way that, Sunset ended, right? I was out front, I was leading, whether I got too excited and I spun out on my own and hit the wall, or oil on the track, right? From the gear that broke the couple laps before that, right?
Yep.
But either way, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I was out front, I was leading laps, and it just builds momentum for the next week and the next week and the next week, right? So
definitely showed it.
That is one thing that I will say that you kind of take for granted a little bit, I guess you could say, is the factor that, like, you get in these cars and you expect to run up front, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't happen like that. I mean, like, I'm not going to lie to you guys, like, Peterborough being my home track, running up front second most of the race, unfortunately, we had the problem with the transmission. Mm-hmm. I was ecstatic for Kevin Trevelyan to win that race. 33 years in the series trying, like, good for him. Like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time put into that, right? Mm-hmm. And that just shows you how competitive this series is, mm-hmm. right? And I think now, even like next year coming, like, I'm putting a lot more focus kind of into the car, and also another thing is my health, just in the simple factor of I'm consistently going to the gym now, just because, like, we get halfway through these races and it's not a 30 lap feature in a super stock anymore, right? We're running 100 mm-hmm. laps. We get to lap 50 and I'm like, oh my God, is this over? Right? There was a couple times at the end of the races where I got out of the car and just laid on the trailer for a while, just because I was just so drained by this, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to have a really, really strong field next year. So just trying to learn as much as I can and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, Graydon, we were at that Peterborough race. It was pretty nuts. I mean, for having 10 cars, things went crazy really quickly, and then they just kind of continued, and it was like, who was going to finish this race?
It was an organically entertaining race. I mean, it was awesome for the first race for me to see in the stands of the series. It was pretty good impression.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I learned quite a fair bit from Anthony Tabello when I ran Super Stocks at Peterborough. He's won track championships there. He's taught me a lot about Peterborough. So I'm very comfortable with Peterborough. Well, for me, I struggle on the outside at Peterborough, right? Mm-hmm. So it was actually funny because during that race, I started second and then I fell back and got passed. And then I'd pass all the cars, and by the time that I got back up to second, a caution would come out. And I'd restart second again, and I'd go all the way to the back. So actually, I think there was even once on the radio when I was, I don't know who it was. I think it was the 48 that I was running with, and I just barely got by him, and the caution came out, and I go over the radio to my dad. I'm like, tell them we're third. Just inside, right? So,
yep. I can remember this because I was in the booth for that event, and I remember Adam telling 44 behind the 48.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that race was that was wild.
Well, and was it worse? Was it? So this is kind of what I was building to. The Sunset, you were up front and then made a mistake. Was it worse having a mechanical failure while running second? Or was it worse spinning out from the lead? Because it's kind of like, if the equipment fails, is that worse? Or is it worse if you kind of feel like you make the mistake?
So it's a mechanical failure on the car. So that you can't control no matter what, right? Spinning from the lead, that one kind of stung a little bit the most, just because you're leading and you don't know whether it was because of, again, the gear that got dumped on the track, or whether it was me, or I just got too excited, right? Leading for the first time, right? So definitely probably Sunset.
Yeah, and then you would mention about the you know, being in right shape. We had a race at Full Throttle there was drivers that actually pulled off because of the heat. It was so crazy. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, so I don't have any cool suit. I don't have any tubes. I have no air into my helmet. I have no lines run to my car. So when I'm racing, it's not that bad. Not necessarily because I'm getting airflow through the car, just because your adrenaline's pumping so much.
Yeah.
But it's under caution when you're slow, and then the heat's building up inside the car, and then you have time to talk to your crew. You have a time to, think about the heat essentially, right? So yeah, there was some hot nights this past summer in the track. That's for sure. So, but yeah, definitely trying to get in a little bit better shape that way. Putting some tubes in my car for, like I said to you guys, I got a new helmet this year, so it's got the tube on the back of the helmet. So I'm hoping that helps a little bit. Just try to get some of the heat out of this car, because there was a couple times where your adrenaline's pumping and you get out of the car and then you got to sit down because you think you're gonna pass out. So.
Definitely. It to your point, I mean, it helps you to be prepared on every angle. I mean, hitting the weights and conditioning yourself, and it just a better mindset overall too when you get into the car, and you feel like you're more one with it, if you will. It's just good for the state of mind.
Tie it back to DJ, right? I mean, we saw him get into phenomenal shape in the off season, and then he had one of his best statistical years in several years this past year, right? And Brad, it was a tough year because the series, again, we're still building. It's gone through a bunch of changes. But we're looking a little more solid for 2023. Doesn't look like things are going to change. You got at least one new competitor that we know out there, with Corey McAllister joining OSS for 2023, at least full time.
He's going to be
for him. Yep. And
young Ollie Ferguson's coming along too
as well. Yeah. And that, again, having people come into the series is always great, because I would assume for you and Michael and even Brendan Patrick being the young names. Now, Brendan, I think, is the youngest. I think he was the youngest last year. Ollie would be the youngest this year. But you're surrounded by not veterans from like 5 years. You've got guys, Sean Mangin, Chad McGlynn, Mike Herniak Sr., Kevin Trevlin, Doug Cathcart, Mark these are 30 plus. So Mark Patrick is heading into his 40th year of racing. 40 years. That's insane, right? When you think about it. So you're literally surrounded by so much knowledge. And then on top of it, you have your dad who was racing. Let's go back and talk about where your family's history in racing's been.
Yeah. So my dad started way before I was born. He ran Cascar Sportsman, essentially, for the longest time. And then he ran a truck at Mossport, when Mossport had the oval. That by far, if you ask my dad, day in and day out, Mossport by far is his favorite track. So then, after the truck, he had a late model, ran the late model for a couple of years, and then he actually stepped away from racing for quite a few years. I stepped into it. I wanted to do, we were at the Barrie Automotive Flea Market, and there was a go-kart there, and I wanted to buy this go-kart. And it was just a little beater, right? Paid $300 for it, and we went to the old Walmart. There's an old Walmart in Orillia. Well, there used to be. And at the time we were living in Orillia, and we'd rip around the parking lot in the go-kart, right? My dad didn't like how close we were getting to the pole, so he's like, hey, at this point we need to get you on an actual track, right? So, and ran the go-karts for quite a few years, and then moved into the super stocks because we could have moved up higher in the go-karts, but we wanted to go oval track racing, and we had a lot of the stuff for the super stock, right? So moved up to that for quite a few years. I think I ran three years at Peterborough. Honestly, we did okay in that, but I definitely learned a lot in that series, especially with the super stock guys, right? So, so did that for quite a few years, and then I actually took a break. I stepped away, and my dad fell in love with the hot rod series. So we dug his car out, and he wanted to run the hot rod series. He ran that for quite a few years, and I'm not gonna lie, I think that's the happiest my dad has ever been. And it was super cool for me because growing up, being younger, I kind of remember my dad racing a little bit, but not a lot. So it was really, really cool to see my dad actually race, right?
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, so he did that, and then he decided that he was going to retire. He my dad loves the sport and loves to drive, but I'll put my dad up against anybody. My dad can build a race car. My dad is very good at building cars, engines. I don't know if you guys know, so we don't run a crate engine. We run a build. My dad builds them all at home.
So, old school, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Between my dad and Terry, Terry actually came from Super Lates. There's quite a bit of knowledge there, right? So
for sure.
For me, the coolest part was being able to actually watch my dad race. So, and actually, we haven't really shared this, and my dad's probably going to hate me for saying this on here, but we're actually going to go practice this spring. And my dad's going to get in the car.
Hell yeah.
Never truly hang it up, right?
No. He's like, he's, I'm pretty sure he's retired a couple times, right? So, but no, for the actual racing portion of it, he's done. He enjoys building the cars. He enjoys watching the cars.
Shaking them down and stuff.
Yeah. So he's seen me race now for 2 years in this car, and he's like, man, I want to try this. So he's gonna try to hop in the car in the spring. So
I'm just saying, nice. Trevelyan does have an old Arca Pontiac, so I mean,
Trevelyan already tried to sell that to my dad.
So we could try and get another Pontiac back out there. I mean, what about 44? Where is the significance with the number 44 for you guys?
Yeah, so 44 actually has two significance. So actually, ironically enough, 44 was not my first pick for a number. My first pick for a number was 9.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Yeah. So I always liked Bill Elliott.
Oh,
so that's where the 9 came from.
Oh,
nice.
Okay.
I never did run it though because my dad's number was 44.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to stick with my dad's number.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, I for a brief minute, we did think about.
We're going on a tour here.
Yeah, we'll go to the Bill Elliott section right there.
There we go.
That's really.
There we go.
That's really cool.
One of those was the Casey Kane, but we'll let that pass.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
And for a brief moment, I did kind of tell my dad that I wanted to change numbers, kind of do my own thing, right? But at the end of the day, kind of like carrying on my dad's number was really cool for me. And then kind of like what I was telling you guys that a gentleman by the name of Rick Brown, where we used to get all of our stuff from, him and I got along great. He was a really big help for us.
Mm-hmm.
He was number 44. So that kind of just added a little bit. Yeah. That kind of just added a little bit to it as well. So that's essentially where the number came from, was originally my dad, and then just kind of stuck with it since.
Well, because who do you support in your as a favorite driver in NASCAR?
Alex Bowman.
So
I'm not on the
wait a
chase
minute.
wagon. I'm not on the chase wagon. Nope. Can't get
Wait
behind.
a minute. Favorite number, Bill Elliott fan, but you support Alex Bowman?
Hey, Bowman moved from the 88 to the 48.
True.
Mhm.
True. I mean,
88's twice 44.
there you go. So I think 88. If you did ever
support
want
the
to
driver, not the car.
fair
Yeah,
fair
there you
enough.
go.
Fair enough. That's a good one to support. Alex. We were big fans of Alex Bowman. So,
Yeah.
Brad got the 2023. The schedule's not out yet for the OSS series, but we don't expect things to be too crazy in terms of changes. But lots to look forward to in the 2023 Ontario Sportsman Series season. Obviously, you had a 2022 season, and you had some great partners on the race car. But the test to you, buddy, we did your first interview at Motorama last year, and
I've come a long way since that, eh?
you very much, yes, very much. You've done a couple more now, and done the big one here on SNS.
Yep.
But you definitely we got to give you that opportunity to thank those sponsors. And see, Chester wants to be on camera right now too, I guess. But got to thank those sponsors that you had last year on the race car. So who do you want to thank?
Yeah, absolutely. So Armored Decals, they were a pretty big one. That they were a new sponsor this year. Muskoka Jet Ski Rental, Mobile Marine, Gervette GM, CY Learning, Juniors Tires. They were Juniors Tires especially was a very big one. Kind of solidifying some more stuff for next year, but it looks like we're going to have the same sponsors on as well as Gervettes and Juniors Tires again, Armored Decals. So, and also working on quite a few more sponsors, which I kind of have a couple solidified now that I'll release at a later date. But
it's great to hear Muskoka names when you're talking about the partners and sponsors on your car. As we're Muskoka guys, we're 705. It's my truck was in at Gravette's getting work done, and I got a calendar for next year too. Talk about Muskoka life, man. It's not the typical hotbed. It's a short list of drivers. Yourself, Daniel Bois is a Muskoka guy. And I guess if you count me, among a few others. But talk about a little bit about life in Muskoka before you go, Brad.
Yeah, so definitely it's definitely a little bit different. We're not kind of in the racing hub around here, right?
Yeah, you like a road trip like we do.
yeah, exactly, right? So just like anytime that you got to take the car to somebody or buying parts, anything like that, it's always it's not we're going down the road to get parts. It's we're going for a one-day trip, right? I mean, actually, we did one about a couple weekends ago now, and we've kind of learned to just buy stuff and get them to hold on to it, and then we make one round, right? Trying to get it all, and we got a camper that we're going to use a lot more next year as well, because we go to Delaware and it's like we get home at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
No doubt. If you're coming home that night, that's a grind, man.
Yeah. So race all night, right? And then coming home from Delaware, I remember it was like almost 5 o'clock in the morning when we pulled in the driveway and backed the trailer in. We could see the sun was coming up.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so definitely got lots of big changes coming for next year, but
nice.
It's a learning process, right? Who would have ever thought though that Muskoka would be the farthest point away, right? So.
Yeah, but as you said, like I kind of liken what you're saying. Like I lived in the rural area and like out in Windermere. When you're going shopping, you don't just run out for one or two things. You make a list and you get everything you need out in one trip. It's kind of like what you're saying with the racing thing. Like logistically, that's kind of how you have to plan things. But man, it's cool to have, as I say, to hear Muskoka names mentioned in a race car driver's interview. It's cool to hear those names having the belief and in a Muskoka guy and going racing, it's just good to hear, man.
The coolest part for me is that, like, growing up, I didn't really, like, everyone had, like, after school, everybody would go to hockey or, baseball. Like, that wasn't me, right?
Yep.
Like we got renaissance, right?
Yep.
And now, like, looking at it, and I kind of actually enjoy it because, like, all my buddies are like, yeah, we're hockey players. And I'm like, yeah, I drive race cars. Right?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And it's funny because there was actually a group of us that all got together and went out for dinner, and they were talking about hockey and stuff like that. And one of the moms was like, "What? Like, do you play hockey?" And I'm like, "No, I drive race cars, right?" So, and everyone was like, "Wait, stop! Wait, what?"
Yeah,
right?
All the heads turned.
Yeah, because a lot of people up here don't know about that, right?
Yeah.
So
that's right.
And that's
a lot of people down here too. It's just a Canada thing, I think, right?
And for me, that's where it's kind of cool, where, like, I have, like, you explain to people and show them pictures about the cars and the racing and stuff like that, right? And you're introducing people that didn't even know this existed into the series, right? Yeah, whether it be a fan, or someone gets involved somehow with it, right? So
yeah. And that's kind of how we feel about it. Obviously, I feel like there's people out there. We just got to talk about it more and get more people turning their eyes to. And that's what when we say, like, it doesn't matter whether you're a dirt fan or a stock car fan. Like, just attracting people and bringing new eyes in and getting eyes on any motorsports in general is a good thing, especially here in Canada. So, I mean, I'm beating the Muskoka drum hard here, but man, like, we literally don't see it that often, man. I mean, we saw we saw it in the Pinty Series actually at Oswego this year. And then Jason Hathaway carried it too for his win at CTMP. So, I mean, it like, you can count on one hand basically times that you see it in the big leagues. So, man, it's awesome.
It's fun. Unfortunately, next year we're going to an enclosed trailer because we have our enclosed trailer, we have our pit box, right? Like, we just, with these traveling series, we really got to have everything with us, right?
Yes.
But I will tell you something. There is something to be said about open car trailers. There is nothing cooler than when you're leaving the house to go to the track and you're driving down Main Street and everybody stops and turns their car. There's something to be said about open car trailers.
I mean, Trev's been doing it for 30 years, and he knows.
I was going to say, they're going to be calling them the Trevlin trailers one day.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we're really happy to announce as well is that Brad's going to be carrying the SNS decal on his car this year. Signed up to be an SNS driver. Actually, last year he signed up, and we just we're really excited. We'll be on a couple of OSS teams next year, and we were already as a part of the sponsor for the series, but we're really excited to have Brad on the team, and
yeah, absolutely
continue to rep and
ride along with me, and hopefully
hey,
I think it's going to be a wild ride next summer, and definitely a lot of stiff competition next year, and
yep,
should be good. I think it's going to be good racing next year.
I think we have that good feeling in common, man. So thank you all. Chester, man, you were shaking this desk.
It's a good time to be a race fan, that's for sure.
Very much.
Absolutely. We're building the series up, and the racing this year was phenomenal. And I think next year is definitely going to be a stepping stone for the series as well, with having Corey McAllister join and quite a few other guys as well, right? So, and it's for me, it was kind of cool to see the young gentleman that just bought a car join. Having somebody young, kind of like Michael and I, right, want to join the series, looks forward to it, right? So,
absolutely.
There's a lot of guys out there that want to join. We all know our man Fine wants to get out there as well. So definitely there's lots of interest, and hopefully we'll continue to build it. But I want to thank Brad Robinson for coming on the show. The best all in the Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, Brad. And we'll catch you all next week on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast.